Hello, I'm Patrick. I'm your friendly immigration lawyer from Vienna, and today I want to talk about the RedWhiteRed Card system. Why? Because so many people reach out to us, ask us questions about the RedWhiteRed Card, and I just feel like today is a good chance for me to address some of those questions. First off, I will start by giving you an overview of what the RedWhiteRed Card actually is, for whom it might be relevant, and later on I'll also talk a little bit about the process of actually getting one. So let's dive into it. Let's start with, why is it called RedWhiteRed Card? Well, red, white, red, because similar to my sweater that I'm wearing right now, red, white, red are the national colors of Austria. That's not the reason why I'm wearing this sweater today, but it's just for you to remind you it's red, white, red because it is connected to Austria. And what is it? It is a combined residence permit, so you and your family could live in Austria, and also a work permit. So you and your family members would be entitled to work in Austria if you get a RedWhiteRed Card. So for whom is the RedWhiteRed Card? Austria has introduced a system for talent, for qualified professionals from abroad to come live and work in Austria. And this is called the RedWhiteRed Card system. There are different categories of those RedWhiteRed Cards, depending also, for instance, on what your background is, how skilled you are. They're very highly skilled professionals. There are other key professionals. Then we have RedWhiteRed Cards for shortage occupations, for instance, where Austria says, you know what, we have a specific shortage in one specific industry, so we need more qualified talent from abroad to fill up the jobs that we have here in Austria where we lack talent. Then there are also RedWhiteRed Cards, for instance, for startup founders and for self-employed people, but I will not address these two types of RedWhiteRed Cards in this video. I will rather focus on the other types, which are for people who come to Austria and work for a local company. And that already brings me to one of the requirements. If you wanted to come and work under a RedWhiteRed Card, in most cases you will already have to prove to the Austrian authorities actually that you do have a job offer waiting for you. Unless you're a very highly skilled person, because in that case, if you were a very highly skilled person, you could, for instance, already apply for a job seeker visa. With this job seeker visa, you can then already come to Austria, be here, not yet start working, but at least be here, talk to companies while you're here, and if one of them wants to hire you, you can then more easily get a RedWhiteRed Card as a very highly skilled person and start working for that company. The RedWhiteRed Card, if you get it, is always issued for 2 years. And when I say you work for a specific company, that also means in the first 2 years of your RedWhiteRed Card, there will also be the name of the company that you work in for written on the backside of this card. And that also means you can only work for that company. So if, for instance, XYZ Incorporated in Austria wants to hire you and you go through the RedWhiteRed Card process with them, then on the back of your card, it will also say, this card is for work exclusively with XYZ Incorporated, not for ABC Limited, okay? You can only work for XYZ Incorporated. So how do you qualify as one of the professionals that Austria says are eligible for a RedWhiteRed Card? Well, there are point systems that will factor in things like your previous experience on different jobs, your education, your age, maybe whether you already worked for a publicly traded company in the past and how much you earned working for that company. Also your language proficiency. Depending on which type of RedWhiteRed Card you're going for, there will be different points that you have to meet. So let's say for other key employees, you will have to meet, for instance, 55 out of 90 possible points. More points will be necessary, for instance, 70 points if you wanted to go for very highly skilled professionals. And the different types of RedWhiteRed Cards will also weigh your background and your skills differently. So now let's also talk a little bit about the process of how you, if you wanted to apply for it, how you could apply in order to obtain such a RedWhiteRed Card. Well, actually there are 2, maybe even 3 different types of authorities that are involved in this process. I'm saying 3, especially for the people who would want to file their application through one of the Austrian embassies abroad, so the one closest to your home country, then maybe you also have to work through the embassy. But normally, like the real 2 authorities in Austria that will decide on your application. That would be, for one, the local immigration authority, depending on which part of Austria you want to live in or where you want to work. And the other thing is the so-called public employment service. So what do these two authorities do? The normal immigration authorities, they will check whether your documents are fine, whether they believe all the information that you provide on you as a person. So your birth certificate, maybe a marriage certificate, what have you. On the other hand, the public employment service, they're the ones to establish whether you meet the qualifications. So they would also do an assessment based on, let's say, your CV and maybe recommendation letters that you have obtained, and also your education. So let's say your university degrees, they would establish whether you meet the criteria even to be considered a highly skilled professional, other key employee, because they would be the people who do the assessment of the points, whether you meet them or not, okay? So it's these two, and only if both of them are satisfied, then you will be able to get your residence permit. So now you could also think of, okay, let's pick one industry, and let's talk about how I personally would recommend that you went about applying for a RedWhiteRed card if you were in that industry. And that industry, for instance, would be IT. So let's assume you are a developer. Irrespective of what it's, back-end, front-end, what have you, Austria needs developers. So developers very often are on the shortage occupation list. So that's a list that Austria publishes every year to say, hey, we lack people in this category. So if you're a person who has a background that matches one of the jobs listed in the shortage occupation list, chances are higher for you to also actually get hired in Austria and to get a RedWhiteRed card, because normally, if you recall, I said there's the public employment service. In some cases, they also have to do a check whether there's already an Austrian or a foreigner living in Austria who could do the job instead of you. So if XYZ Incorporated says, actually, we have a job opening and they want to hire somebody from abroad, in some cases, the authority would then say, yeah, well, but prove to us why you need to bring in Mr. Smith from any other country. Why don't you just take Mr. Meyer, who's already an Austrian living here? However, in some categories of RedWhiteRed cards, for instance, the shortage occupation RedWhiteRed card, they don't have to do this check because it's already clear there is no Mr. Meyer in Austria. We don't have people who could take this job. So this step of the application would not be necessary. So it's easier, let's say, for a person working in IT to get the RedWhiteRed card through the shortage occupation route. So if you consider coming here to Austria, and maybe you have a family, you will also consider, well, I don't want to be separated from my family. How can I do this? Well, if you were to obtain a RedWhiteRed card, your spouse, if they moved with you, or your children, your minor children, your underage children who live in the same household with you, they could also come to Austria and they would get a RedWhiteRed card plus. As long as you have your RedWhiteRed card, they will also get their RedWhiteRed card plus. They can live here, your spouse could work here in Austria, your kids could go to school or could go to university. So it is an on-ramp for all of you to come to Austria and maybe build a life here. So in any case, if you feel like the RedWhiteRed card is something that you want to explore, please, by all means, reach out to the specialist that you trust. And whatever comes, I wish you all the best if you want to explore your future in Austria. Do take care.